panelist panel discussion. I'm Praveenamai Baikloy from Thai TBS. I'm so glad to come to join in this meeting and with this very important topic to make CBT to achieve the standards and effectiveness. And I would like to have you to get to know Mr. Bancha Kwang-Hlee, President of the CBT networks of Krabi province, who has lots of experiences for decades, and he is one who knows the marketing process as relevant to the CBT and local development. The second person is Mr. Wanchai Suwatsiripon, the Manager Noble Through Travel and member committee of the TITA, who get involved for decades in the travel networks, who has lots of experience to promote homestay and experiences with many kinds of visitors groups who can have different reactions to the communities once they come visit. The third person is academician, Mr. Jittasak Putjorn from from Faculty of Management, Silpakorn University, who has a lot of experience of the CBT and tourism management, and he is an advisor both locals and national levels, and can bring you to the locals for those who want to see sustainability of tourism in the locals. And I would like to invite you to listen how this CBT interesting and can be managed. And I would like the first person, Mr. Bancha, who lives in Krabi, to speak first. Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to come to the topic immediately. We are talking about standards. I live in Krabi and look after these standards in Krabi, and I would like to share experiences in the past, how we have managed the CBT of the community without the standards recognized by a law. And we are talking about standards now, which I'm interested in exchanging with you and others. It is necessary to have these standards because it's about the marketing, sharing the CBT. The government still is not interested in promoting how good CBT can be. If we have the standards by the communities, it's going to force the government to be interested and to help the locals, people in the locals. And he can share the experience of Krabi, how the CBT works, how the community themselves build the standards, and they will love and want to protect their own natural resources. When we have the standards, can make this CBT more interesting. Mr. Wanchai, I want to share my own experience before we send visitors to the communities. There will be the questions, how can we stay, how they can be stay, food, rooms, where to visit, a lot of questions. Those questions, in conclusion, comes to standards. But before standards, we are going to have a lot of questions and problems, supposing in each community has its own standard. If we can ask, do you have standards? And where is recognized by what, where, and everything will be finished and no more problem. And we can talk with foreigners. This community has standards of CBT. These standards that we can have are very, very useful to this topic, and we can have the same understanding of what kind of standards we have and how and what, and we can talk with different groups of visitors, including foreigners, and the recognition, accreditation by what groups, what agencies. Ajahn Paul, can you express your opinion on the global communities which gives the importance to this standard? I found that most of the visitors do not know where they are going to. The international language is to give them confidence when they go there. They will be safe and receive what they expect. And they have a lot of expectations when they're coming to places. And in the past, we found that about 40–50%, and they fail to reach their expectation because they have a lot of expectation, and the locals do not answer what they want to see, what they want to have the experiences, so that we need to prepare the locals to greet them, and the enterprises, the travel agency can be ready to bring them to the places. If once from the travel agency and coming to the communities, there are a lot of problems because of they are not ready to accommodate. At the same time, the government needs to take part. In the past, we found out that the understanding for reaching the standards and the government's trying to dominate the communities, and the communities do not want to respond to that kind of rigid demands. So that why and how we can have our moderate part that is working together with the government section, with the academicians and those people who get involved as stakeholders, and we can have the answer for those global visitors, and they can have the content and be satisfied with the accommodation, so that to make the standards think global and think globally and act locally. That's the catchword, and how we can adapt this into each community, because each communities are different, and we can have the experience of each community to to share experiences. In the past, we found that standards is like a dozen of that T-shirts, which it might be is like is good for to fit the countries in a mold of modern development, but in each community who can stand up and have its own standard, it might be better because the requirement is it might be rigid and they are face difficulty to cope with the demands and the standards, but in the real experience in the communities, if they can think of themselves and have their own standard, it might be easier. From the beginning, when you develop and start talking about standards, what happens afterwards? It must be accepted that after the first meeting in 2006 and a few years back when we have drafted these standards, and I think it takes a very long time to have this draft conclusion. The villagers in the community, they still continue to work, and after the talk in Songkhla with the research team, and we come back to Krabi, and we have a group, and we have the Krabi CBT group, and we go to every district, and have sharing with each community, and we have suggestion and to make the improvement. And we have now 13 communities there. The 13 communities, we have the idea to have the framework and to make plans, as Ms. Kundet Pumkacham mentioned this morning. It appears that the benefits of standards are varieties. I have the opportunity to talk with the local administrations of those 13 communities, and we discussed, and there appear the problems like the bicycle lanes, and we need the funding from the government, and the governments ask for the standards. What kind of standard are there? And what is the guarantee of the CBT? And we come back to think and what we have practiced and learned, and we work out. Today, the latest last year, I cannot remember the month, at Surat Thani, I hope that the framework of these standards should be ready now, but still not actually ready. And we cannot wait for this because the communities cannot wait, and the visitors would be coming, and the travel agency who send the visitor need confidence in the dealing with this tourism. And I asked the local governments, the provincial administrative government organization for funding, and we received 3 million. In this 3 million cake, and it's not reaching down to the communities. We should have sharings with all the communities, and we have the standards. The standard first can guarantee and necessary, and it has to do with the government funding and the government's questioning of the standard. Five categories that Mr. Wanchai mentioned. When you go to this to beach and swimming, and how can you be safe? This has to do with the standards, and that can be worked out with the government agencies. And the next benefit is that CBT, if seen from the enterprise size, they think travels by villages, communities, they might not have the knowledge to do it. But those who take care the resources in the past and who can sell their tourisms and who take care of this, they are the villagers, the local people. Now today they want to have more rights and to have the says and to want to have the financial sharing, and this has to do with the standards for the communities. When there is no clear framework of standards, and in between how this standard emerge within the communities and what their reaction to this having the standards. Earlier, without the framework of the standards, but once we have these standards, they feel pressed. But we talk and explain that we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 standards, and in the end, they will themselves will receive the benefits. But I think at the same time, we need some flexibility of these standards, which can help or facilitate the villagers to a certain extent. Earlier, there were talks about rigid standards and no change at all. Once you come to application like the hill tribes, it is need to be bent a little bit. And we talk about this. The villagers themselves need to improve themselves in many ways to correspond to the standards the visitors demand today. Today, those who cannot work die out, and still a lot of places still can hang on and develop further. Mr. Wanchai, what do you think of the visitors think about or expect those they require the standards? What are they? Most of the standard visitors I experience, and I bring them to communities and to homestay. They need the originality, the original attractiveness of the communities, and a group of visitors stay at grand hotels some sort, and they don't need to they don't need me to take them to my home, and they take the T-based tram themselves, and they want to be homestay. When they stay in the hotel, they cannot talk to anybody. When he in homestay, they can talk with members of the communities, the members of the families, when they're coming out on the soil and hello, hello, a lot of people saying that to them. They are surprised and they're glad that a lot of people say hello to them. That's nice. And this is the attractiveness of the communities. How about the marketing? How that deal with what kind of visitors? Families, people who would like to have this kind of experience. And I have the experience with the families from Europe, most of them, and from the Japan, who, when you connect with the visitors and what channel they get to know and coming to you, do they understand the standards? Most of the foreigner visitors, they think of the standards. They are really concerned. The Thai people don't think about standard very much. After searching for the information, they go and they don't discuss or find out what kind of standards. But those foreign visitors, and they ask about your house, your restrooms, lights, colors, surrounding of the house. What are they? Do you have pets, cats, dogs? They're really inquisitive, talking about wanting to know, including cooking, how that you do it. And after I have get used to being with the foreigners, they cannot make a stir fry of fishes, and they cannot operate on fishes, and we teach them how to cook the fish. What is the reflection of the visitors? What kind of suggestion they have for us? Mostly they need the impression. They express the impression, and suggestion are not very much, and they are frightened of the cobwebs, and the spiders, and for them they are frightened of this kind of this thing on the ceiling of the house. When they expect this, and the communities can respond to their demand and expectation, that can make CBT successful and sustainable, so that standards can be unavoidable. Ajahn Pa can explain more what kind of standards we are going to achieve, what part of this that we have to recognize the importance. So it is going to have an impact, certainly, unavoidably, and the real understanding who going to be visitors for the CBT. This is the first question, and the understanding of the hosts or those who works in the local, or if they have the experience of many places, that going to be the standard, or they think of the standard that like from the book, and when they apply to the visitors who really expect the local visiting, they select themselves, and they want to be content in this kind of CBT, and the evaluation will be at the end of the visiting. But when they start with the smile of the villagers, some naturals encountering in many places, instances, many networks having problem with marketing, which can be seen that anyone can travel, anyone can visit, but actually there are questions to be answered for many visitors when they think that a lot of visitors coming and everything will emerge properly in the end. But actually, in many countries, they can make the narrow market and make it the strength of the place and can respond to the expectation of the visitors. But in our country, many communities need funding, and they believe and they follow the suggestion of the top-down agency. But then they are not really flexible to really respond to the visitors in the real situation. And sometimes so that they have to bend a little bit to many agencies like a government when going into the communities. They erase a lot of posters. They try to some sort of stealing that they themselves are building this development, but actually there are a lot of help that needs from a lot of agency, like so that we cannot stay idle and be afraid of no visitor. Don't be afraid. We need to keep our originality, and don't be afraid to be firm. And a lot of places like this receive a lot of awards. Yes, and this many communities cannot work out the standards, so that a lot of shareholders needs to understand the communities, and a lot of visitors don't know how to. The Thai visitors cannot do this because we need the good accommodation. But many countries, you go through many mountains, you walk through trekking and go there, and that's the kind of community CBT. About Wi-Fi in the villages, and a lot of countries they are ready to have Wi-Fi for visitors. In a lot of Wi-Fi you can find in many villages, and this is not very strange. We must let the villagers think what kind of readiness you be ready to have this kind of protection, to protect themselves and to preserve themselves. This is a very difficult question. The policies, the direction, and the groups are not known, or maybe losing the direction. We see today in terms of policy, which I try to understand. They try to understand too they understand of the situation too in our country. We need to improve ourselves a lot more. But actually, the communities are in a stage of getting advanced. Who are the visitors coming to us, and many communities are not waiting for the government agencies because we request the help and we don't receive them. And I would like to suggest that the governments who want to get involved with the community should come down and have discussion. And the communities might say that we have been dealing with these standards a lot, yeah, and now we have a startup standard again, so that we can have a good tuning together, a tuning together and coming to a good chord together now, so that we can go into the same direction. What we can do and we cannot do. How to build the standards. We see that a lot, many agencies, organizations setting standards. That should be one single standard or many kinds of standards. Like we have one brand or one logo and have the so one thing, it's to have a major brand, major standard. The only, or we can say that these are single standards, and the next is the communities can rely on this and match them with their own experiences, and we can perhaps reach certain level of these standards and continue to improve these standards in the next year, for example. Okay, for example, like the environment issues, where a lot of people don't have the participation and only the local leaders have the say. But that is the problem of participation. We need to have more villagers to come to join and to have the standards that a lot of people have the say in setting them in many places. Yeah. The first generation are very strong in doing things, but the next generation has no guarantee of the continuation. And we have the heritage, which cannot be counted as money. Only the money cannot be standard, and so that we might not have the same standard as we say that, but actually it is a kind of standard that you set, and you have the community to improve in the long term and to evaluate themselves in the process. Kun Bancha, this kind of concept that participation of the localities, the communities, to have the awareness and preservation, your experience in Krabi. Can you cite some examples for us from my experience with the communities, where the communities have to take care of themselves and to make themselves understand of the government attempts in Krabi. In Krabi, this kind of CBT is growing up very, very fast, and the private sectors it's very active in exploiting this development, and we have the coral reef dying a lot, and so that the communities should come forward and claim what they are the protector of the reef, the water, and the forest, so that the communities should come back and think that today we need cooperations and participation. What kind of participation in this effort? Ajahn Paul said the representatives of the communities, only 4 or 5, who come and say that we want that and this and determine this, that. But we need more base, wider base of participation from villagers, so that we need to have the kind of rules, the framework, and we not only want to have the funding from the governments, for example, the visitors coming and to stay with Mr. A. Mr. A's have the rubber plants, and the visitors want to see they tap the rubber waters, and sometimes they have to quit the rubber plantation jobs on the daily basis, and coming to visit and coming to accommodate the visitors. But actually the visitors themselves want to see the rubber planters to do their job. So they need to have the right attitude and the right kind of response to the demand of the visitors. We have in Krabi province 13 communities who stand on their legs, their own legs, and we continue to talk, to discuss, and perhaps when we have the standards, so that the communities will determine what we can do and what we cannot do, that would emerge from the discussion. I think this is the way that the 13 communities in Krabi need to do it, and each community has its own rules and standard. Plus, what we discussed so far, the government and the people and the organization who deal with the standard coming to discuss with us, and I think finally we can have the kind of well-rounded discussion and have this the standard, because in the end we need to present ourselves in kind of our original heritage in the local, and the community themselves have to think for themselves about this. And today we have the ASEAN dimension, not only in Thailand, in our communities thinking about this ASEAN topic. Actually, we have been talking about this ASEAN topic because in the near future we cannot avoid this development among ASEAN, and the government, our province, think that we don't know anything, but they might be wrong. They think that the villagers are stupid, but that's not true. When we know about this, and when we criticize the government, and they are angry, and actually we have our own development, and in terms of ASEAN, where the communities which not ready and lack the knowledge and is not following up very closely with the ASEAN development, they will become behind. But anyways, our principle is is coming back to our original heritage when we opened our local communities for the visiting. We want they to come out to villages, and we don't want to change our ways of life, and that it's our strength, and we stand our own, and we don't want to go anywhere to work anywhere. We stay in our own villages, and think easily how the Wanchai bring the visitors to the communities. Kun Wanchai think if we have the final conclusion about the standard, how that's going to affect the situation in your thinking. CBT is to help the society and to help the country. When we bring the visitor to visit, we build the friendships between the communities and foreign visitors. And if we can sustain this effort in the long term with the next generation, they can continue to have their occupation, and they don't have to go out of the village. In northeast Thailand, you can see only the old people and the children stay in the village, and the young and the youth are going out of the villages, and that's not a good scene for us. And the kids lack the warmth and the taking care of the people who are older. That's not the kind of thing that we want to see. But CBT is the remedy for this situation. What kind of standards that we need to add into that? I want each community to talk, to talk together. We have the standard of homestay. That I dealt with this issue, and we talk with the families what we want in homestay. And the next step is, I think languages are important. For example, I want my kids to be able to communicate with foreign languages, and we can have the way to talk with the foreigners. And there will be discussion within the family, the son and the daughters and the mother, and in terms of marketing, we come to talk and we discuss and what kind of marketing which is important for us. We may decide that the Europeans are very important visitor for us, and so that we can have the kind of architects which can give the European pleasure of seeing like color tones for the houses, what kind of decorations inside the house, the restrooms, warm water, water closets, which is suitable for those coming from Europe. And we have our websites, and the visitor coming to contact with us, we start discussion. And my son is good in English, so that's perfect for him to communicate with the Europeans. And then we expand our networks, the same kind of people, the like-minded people who think about this, and we have our standard within our home. For example, no alcohols, no smoking, and this is a very easy standard for our home and our networks. If you coming back late, wherever you go, you have your keys, but when you want to smoke, you go out of the house, and finish smoking and you coming back. Yeah, my homestay is in there in Bangkok, where Wong Suwang in Bangkok, and we receive the visitors coming homestay in Bangkok. I want to share with you, this is the activities when the visitor coming, and to give alms to the monks in the morning. How long the visitors take time with their visiting? 3 months, 6 months, perhaps sometimes 2 days or 3 days, both long and short stays. You can see that this is the development by the community. Today we see the working of the communities working toward the standards which can give the sustainability of the CBT. Ajahn Paul, if you have anything to add. I would like to invite all the academicians, please coming to the community and suggest and to give them the idea of how to evaluate the standards. We can have some sort of agreement with the communities. In the past, the student visitors coming to many communities, and the students and the villagers become some sort of relatives, and they help each other. Sometimes the students visitor, if they don't have good preparation, it's not the way that you're going there to play cards, to play games. But when you go down to the village, the students should understand that they need to learn from the locals. And you need to have the impression of how and what kind of the communities there. And many times some VIP going down there, and the villagers exceptionally prepare for them. That is the losing of the standard for the VIP. There's no need for that. So we need to bring the people there, whatever they are, to have some sort of respect for the locals, from the communities. And sometimes they have to have some sort of adventure and hardship, like a trekking, going up the mountains, and they are lost their way and getting into the forest for a long time. And once they come back and reflect this experience, they think that the kind of hardship and sharing the experience in the local is very impressive, and remember that all the time, and they become very very satisfied with that kind of experience. So many times the parents are worried about the student going down to the communities, like going to the southern province. The parents are afraid to let their student go down there, but they miss their opportunity to learn. And the first thing that they should do is to get prepared to go down there to the communities. Yeah. And it's good way that they go together, parents and students, and they see for themselves that and let the student take care of their parents. That's the way to work too. And I think this is the way to expand the CBT. Today, the tour organizations and travel agencies to today each communities their own member, its own member going out to other communities, so that we can interchange CBT between communities. And the teachers and the leaders of the community should work together to have a setup and to have the standards. Many students once received the comment from us, and they think it's too much for us to work out for that. Yeah. So that the process of building this confidence and development is very important. Government's budget, instead of promotion or marketing, coming back to the villagers and to make them stronger. Don't think about the numbers of visitors. Don't use that kind of standard to measure the development of communities. Many countries in ASEAN looking for quality visitors, but in terms of quantity, if the quantity increase unstopped, it's very difficult to control the situation in many areas. For example, Phuket. Many years back, we worked out sort of CBT, and there's no one need CBT. But today we found out the agricultural networks, and it's become more interesting for many people. So today in Phuket, many visitors ride motorcycles, going to places, different places, and they found out that outside the city, they find different kind of foods, some sort of souvenirs, and the local can benefit from this. And we are not going to be a little thing that waiting for the mercy of the big companies coming down to help, and sometimes we need to know and a lot of travel agency want to send a lot of people down to the communities, but we need carrying capacities, and many places we don't accept them to stay overnight, and maybe we can have a place for them to stay, and many villages, many communities trying to copy many places, other places, and we look alike, in many places look alike, and that's like the attractiveness. Yeah. What kind we want to propose for them to see, visitors, for them to see, and we so that if we go down there, if we discuss with them and don't impose the standard upon them. And actually this is the sharing for co-learning and many networking learning. So I can see some light for this, building the standards together can increase the potentials of communities. I want our audience to have
Ajahn Amnat from Majo University, Chumpon. We've talked about the standard, is that right? and I think beyond the standard. Some community might not get access to the standard or don't want to follow the standard. So is there any other solution? For example, we can set up the organization or network or association or foundation or any forms of the group from the governor that this group exists. You know, we get some recognition in the region or in the province. But I think, which I look, it doesn't matter whether it's some standard or it's something that to recognize them or recognize the network. The most important goal is the objective or the goal for the environment conservation and cultural preservation. I'm not sure if the standard that we are following, which will lead to the same vicious cycle. Let me just clarify. If it's a clear organization in the area and then go to have the roles in the province, but after all, they don't have the decision-making process, or the governor has a decision-making power. So it doesn't matter whether it's the same standard. You know, we're not gonna get recognition, or we're not gonna change any. Uh, we cannot use any standard. So I would like us to talk more about. Is there any other solution if we can't follow the standard? Thank you. Hello, I am Tawan. I'm the director of the homestay from Banpu, Mukdahan. The term standard is a criteria, indicator about the people's satisfaction. It's about tourists. It's like a cloth, T-shirt. You know, we ask whether it's up to the standard. It's only the basic criteria. So I think the standard is only generally recognized, but if we are looking at the standard of the tourism, we have to make it stricter, or it's not only guarantee satisfaction, but we also have to attract the people within our community to be satisfied with the standard as well. So let's talk about the lodging or accommodation. I believe that many community would like to promote their culture, their tradition that they already have it, and to expose this, culture to get recognition among the community, and like to draw the visitor to come and appreciate. So the community-based tourism is something that we should cooperate. Maybe we keep the government's, role at the minimum, but let's take a look at the Banpu community. But we use the community as a center, but we like to get the community to be proud of the context of the environmental treasure, and would like every stakeholder to come and appreciate. Let's take a look, like we are building a house and build a house, beautiful house, and without the people, without visitor, we cannot be proud of that. Not sure about the whether about the standard. Don't use other community to judge, but use your own community. So the criteria is happening when we have the visitor coming to our community. Then we can check whether it works. Which criteria? So basically, we use criteria CBT for our own community, but we would extend our cooperation with others so that our community and others have a standard. Many things that is a basic criteria help us to be proud of our community-based tourism, but many things help us to check how happy, how satisfied they are. Thank you very much. Okay, Kun Bancha will just let's talk about if there's anything in Krabi, what do you consider an alternative other standard or alternative standard? But based on the question from Chumpon, okay, let me talk from my experience. I am not the academic, so I don't have much of a technical knowledge. But if you ask, the whether the government's order or the order from the governor or provincial governor to set up the committee criteria in the province, that province, every province can do that, every district can do that. But if I will belong to the Ministry of Sport and Tourism, in the provincial level, they can appoint, the people and then propose it to the governor, and the governor will just set up the committee or announce in the government's official letter. Every province can do that, and the province and the Krabis also follow the suit. But what we are actually talking about here, we're talking about the social context or the community context that we can apply to ASEAN context. So we have to have the main issue, the main topic that we can link to the central government, and we can adjust that into fitting in the different context. The socio-economic factor and the tradition, the context are different. We cannot really use, the detailed version of the standard. So if you ask me if it's necessary to have or to have other standard or to have other solution, not the standard, I think maybe it's up to the province. Generally, I think from my experience, I think we should use the same standard because the government or the government department or different organization can use the same law. I think it should be the same. Ajahn Paul, what do you think of this? The committee that community set up themselves, or the committee that we have to get? Okay, we have, or the other standards. The committee work together with the government, with other stakeholder, and then get recognition. The word standard or the word network or many other terms, I would like to look this as a tool. It's a tool that we are going to implement, and our destination is sustainability or sustainable development. If it's sustainability, maybe if we look at the standard as a tool in our area, if it works, if it's practical, then we use. If it's not practical, the standard that not practical, we can use the other network or anything that fit into the context. But let's have a look. We must, or we might have something in common. If we have something that's similar, if we have the group or the network that can share some similarity, we can talk about that. We can still talk about the criteria. So let's see the accommodation. We don't have to have the accommodation in the house, but we can just talk about what sort of accommodation that we need. During the process, it's important because we can learn about what is a good applicable to our community. We might not have to put the people in the room in the same house, but we can use a separate house. Or this different community has a different way of managing the accommodation, and with they might have a lodge near the forest or with the mosquito net, or they have fishing. But everything is different. But as long as it's not pose any threat on your safety, like you sleeping by the river, you can do that. But as long as you not fall into the water. So what are the similarity and what are the differences? What are the unique differences? So that's what we should talk about. Our standard that we could have maybe could help us develop ourselves. The standard is that we might need to have a meeting every fortnight, or we want to see the committee to have our youth to come and join in the meeting. And this is something that it's our committee or something with many community. We managed to get a bigger picture, a clearer picture. Uh, I would like to add from what Ajahn Paul, Professor Paul has mentioned. Kun Putjorn mentioned that there are 5 framework, but I'm from the CBT and from OTOP. I would like to see that our CBT product OTOP is different. If we use the 5 concept, 5 factor, and that's the general standard. But because we have spirit, we have value added, so maybe is it possible if we look at the standard, we should have a better or a highly promoted standard. Sometimes we check the value, but it's not only the value, but this is something spiritual value or something that is more important. So the term value or kunaka is different. CBT is not only selling the quantity. It's not like a mass product like what the TAT has done. So we don't check only the quantity or the statistic of the tourist arrival. Let's have a look, the TAT looking at the number, how much money we make. They can continue doing that, but what is going on with CBT is not only about the number, but it's about, actually more important that we're talking about the resource conservation, we're talking about homestay, and we're also talking about the hidden value that we learn, which is, immeasurable. We would like to add that if we want to talk about the standard, we have to consider about the value. I'd like to comment or suggestions, provide any suggestion. I am so happy today that we start to see the standard. I think this is very important, but I think this is only the indicator. Let's take a look at the committee in Hue Rang. If Hue Rang say we have the standard, but we can use that as an indicator to check or gauge whether how far we have to go. But what I would like to see is that we want to see the standard to put into the policy level. We still haven't got into the policy level yet. I have been talking about this since I'm going to retire it now, but I don't still see that we see the lights yet. So I like to see all the academic institution personnel. I would like to see the people. Today we're talking about the community. How can the community stand beautifully among the development? Even the standpoint of the community is only limited, but we stand firmly and very simple. I would like to see how can we put that standard into the government policy level. I would like I'm to fight for that. But if we keep talking about standard this and that, they are not going to use our standard. So now the big question is that we have been thinking it over and over. How can we put the standard into the policy, because there's no other power than the power of the people. Can I get 5 baht to talk about this? I would like to add the points into the conversation to the every speaker and everybody from the audience. Now we're talking about the quality, whether it's Europe or it's in Thailand, especially people in this room. When we think of quality, quality is about service, sustainability, together. So we have to have two. It's not only service. Sometimes I think about service. The people who has the benefit is tourists, but service, we can learn to improve the skills of the community. And we know the tourists get the most from the service. But if we refer to what Kun Bancha said, we cannot get the whole set. But let's talk about the benefit to the community. If we, let's say, if we talk about sustainability, we have the standard to, so at least we have about 1 or 2, 3 issues as a standard. The standard will help protect, the community from working very hard. The community has been working very hard to protect the resources, natural resources. The new community or the young community who just participated, they have done their best. But if we just only use no standard, if we just use only the network loosely structure without the standard, there's a lot of people who do not put their work, don't put their hands into work. This is not a very fair. I mean, it's good to allow many community to join them, but people who have been working hard, the community that has been working really hard, they have to have something that they can tell people that we are going to, show off our asset. This is not about food, this is not about service or anything, but it's a success that they work with the community. It's a success of working in agriculture in Europe and the whole wide world now. We are seeking for sustainable development. Let's talk about the policy now, the policy advocacy. This is from my experience. I'm sorry, let me just talk about this frankly with the government. I like to teach you a little bit. But in terms of the CBT network, in terms of elevating CBT into a policy standard, into a policy, some already is a policy, but when we first approach the tourism authority of Thailand, they said they're interested, but they said they never really want to have CBT standard, and they said that, oh, this is not their work and this is not our work. That's what their response. But when CBT has been policy, we go to the office, they will just tell you that it's not our work. Now, before it's not their work, but when it becomes to become the policy, it's not a job of the NGO anymore. CBT-I has 20 years experience, has a wealth of knowledge. We need to work together. It's really time to take it serious, to use all this knowledge and skill to work together. CBT in Thailand is international, is a best practice at the global level, and every people, Thai people and the government of Thailand should be proud. And let me just emphasize this, you should be proud of this. We never really talk about CBT-I from we have to celebrate this success. Yeah. Okay, let me just have another last one. On my part, I would like to see the will or the goal of the CBT. We would like to emphasize the community participation and protection of resources by the community, the development of community-based tourism. This is, it has been advanced, it has been promoted to the advanced level. I'm not talking about the embarrassing government office that they cannot, keep up with what we're doing, but why don't we try to get all these people who are knowledgeable in the CBT, CBT-I, or Professor Paul, who has the knowledge? Let's talk together, let's sit together, and then move to push the policy. Don't be embarrassed that this is my work, this is your work. It's time now to work together, to cooperate. The will of the CBT is that use the tourism as a tool to development, for development. Thank you very much. That's from Surasit, from Karen community. Now I think that you have understood and learned about CBT in Thailand and the perspective of the CBT-related stakeholder. The most important thing is that the community, benefit and the benefit that indirectly goes to the country. I hope we can have a chance, I would like to give them an applause to the speaker. Thank you very much. บางบัญชาคุณอาจารย์ปอและคุณวันชัย And I would like to see this atmosphere. There's a forum in the afternoon and tomorrow also interesting. I would like you to follow that as well. Now it's time for us to go and take a break for lunch. For the